Let's get right into it, because SpaceX has completely rewritten the rules of aerospace. But behind the roaring rocket engines and all those historic milestones we see on the news, there's a massive, somewhat hidden corporate pivot going on. In this explainer, we're going to dive deep into a documentary-style look at the financial pressures, the severe engineering bottlenecks, and the sheer strategic shifts that have taken a company entirely focused on Mars colonization and turned it into an Earth-dominating, multi-planetary logistics empire.
And our story really hits a historic climax on June 12, 2026. That's the day SpaceX made its highly anticipated debut on the NASDAQ. Trading under the ticker symbol SPXX, the stock absolutely surged, up 19% on its very first day. We're talking about a market capitalization rocketing to over $2 trillion. That effortlessly eclipsed Saudi Aramco to become the largest initial public offering in the history of global financial markets. It instantly made SpaceX the sixth largest enterprise in the United States, and, well, it officially made its founder the world's first trillionaire.
Think about that for a second. It's a completely mind-blowing milestone for a rocket company that was founded back in 2002 by a guy who publicly admitted he gave his own venture practically zero chance of success. Standing right there at the NASDAQ podium during the IPO, Elon Musk actually brought up those early days of near bankruptcy and exploding rockets. That incredible contrast, going from a scrappy startup with less than a 10% chance of survival to a $2 trillion behemoth, that is the dramatic arc defining the modern space age.
But right away we run into a fascinating financial mystery. You'd naturally expect a $2 trillion company to just be printing pure profit, right? Well, taking a look at the numbers from their S-1 filing, despite pulling in a staggering $18.67 billion in total revenue for 2025, SpaceX actually suffered a massive $4.93 billion net loss. So how exactly does a company with an absolute monopoly on commercial spaceflight bleed nearly $5 billion in a single year?
To figure that out, let's start with Part 1, the cash engine. We really have to dissect their primary revenue driver to understand that massive loss. Just look at the launch cadence from January 2026 alone. It's an absolute masterclass in operational dominance. I mean, SpaceX was launching a Falcon 9 rocket almost every other day. They were turning launch pads around in under 50 hours. Because of this, the Falcon 9 has become the most reliable and frequently launched rocket in human history, easily projected to fly over 150 times in 2026.
And what were those near-daily rockets actually doing? They were deploying a sprawling Starlink network. The exponential curve here is just wild. The global subscriber count exploded from 2.3 million in 2023, doubled to 4.4 million in 2024, and then surged to 10.3 million active subscribers by the first quarter of 2026. This connectivity segment generated roughly 60% of the company's total revenue. Make no mistake, Starlink is the cash cow keeping the lights on.
Which brings us to Part 2, the breaking point.
Because underneath all those historic, record-breaking growth numbers lies a really critical breaking point. If we look a bit closer at the subscriber data, the math starts getting difficult. See, Starlink had to expand into highly price-sensitive global markets, places like Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America, just to maintain that rapid growth. And because of that, the average revenue per user sharply plunged. It dropped from $99 a month in 2023 down to just $66 by early 2026. Now, to keep margins up, they've slashed the manufacturing cost of the Starlink kit by 59%. But cost-cutting only goes so far, right?
So, the absolutely crucial point here is that to fix this margin issue and support a projected 45 million users by 2030, SpaceX desperately needs to upgrade the entire network. They have to launch these massive 1 terabit Starlink V3 satellites, but there is a huge, literal roadblock. They have officially hit the physical capacity limits of the Falcon 9 rocket. The V3s are simply too big to fit, meaning to deploy the next generation of their cash cow, they absolutely require their next generation rocket.
And that leads us straight into Part 3, the Starship bottleneck. This is the ultimate gamble. Starship is SpaceX's $15 billion lifeline. It's a fully reusable vehicle capable of lifting over 100 metric tons into orbit. But the transition hasn't exactly been smooth sailing. As of May 22, 2026, during Flight 12, which featured their brand new Raptor 3 engines, the Super Heavy booster failed to stick its landing. Consequently, the entire vehicle was grounded by the FAA pending a mishap investigation.
And this grounding created a massive bottleneck for the whole company.
SpaceX had originally targeted 25 operational Starship missions for 2025. Instead, they flew just 5 test flights. Remember that $4.9 billion net loss we talked about earlier? Well, this massive shortfall is exactly why it happened. They are bleeding capital on research and development while simultaneously delaying Starlink's vital V3 expansion.
So we enter part 4, redefining the mission.
This immense financial and engineering pressure forced a historic plot twist for the company. For 2 decades, SpaceX's loudly stated goal was colonizing Mars. But on February 9, 2026, essentially abandoning the immediate romantic vision of the Red Planet, Elon Musk officially delayed the Mars timeline out to the 2030s. Why? To secure lucrative, near-term dominance in lunar and military operations. It was a highly pragmatic pivot, from a science fiction dream to an immediate, heavily funded government and commercial reality.
Because SpaceX is contracted by NASA as the human lander for the Artemis program, they have to deliver on the moon before they can even look at Mars. To build Moonbase Alpha, Starship urgently has to complete 3 incredibly complex technical steps. First, prove the ship can survive extended durations in orbit. Second, perfect their lunar life support systems. And third, demonstrate highly complex ship-to-ship propellant transfers, which is literally refueling massive rockets in the freezing vacuum of space.
But here's the thing, the pivot wasn't just about shifting from Mars to the moon. Armed with a massive war chest of cash from their IPO, SpaceX redefined themselves as a hardcore tech and AI juggernaut. They integrated XAI in February. Then, just days after going public, they dropped $60 billion to acquire the software company Cursor. They even launched a semiconductor joint venture called TerraFab with Tesla. They are pivoting extremely hard into the $26 trillion orbital computing and AI market.
Which brings us to our final section, Part 5, the multiplanetary economy.
This is the new pragmatic reality. We are no longer just looking at a launch provider here. Within 4 to 5 years, SpaceX's stated goal is to launch 1 fully reusable Starship every single hour. They intend to treat massive 100-ton space freighters exactly like commercial airline flights. It completely rewrites the fundamental economics of space, moving away from delicate miniaturized satellites into an era of massive, robust orbital infrastructure.
So, as the dust settles on their record-shattering IPO, their strategic shift from Mars to the Moon, and their aggressive push into orbital AI, we are left staring at a massive paradigm shift. SpaceX is literally building the logistics layer for a multiplanetary economy. So we really must ask the question, what happens to global power dynamics when a company that started with the idealistic goal of saving humanity becomes the single most powerful corporation on Earth? Think about that for a bit, and I'll see you in the next explainer.